Hey guys, I'm not really good at this live thing, but I wanted to come on here and just talk about who I am and what I do and why I do it. And sometimes I'll knock things down. I work in a tight spot in my house. I used to have a shop in downtown Cleveland, but I wasn't a big fan of working all day and then going down there and working late at night, especially in the bad area. So I brought everything home, much to the chagrin of my family. But anyway, I'm not even sure anybody's going to even watch this video, but I've been making custom wooden flags for going on my 9th year. When I started, really not many people were doing it. I saw a wooden flag, a wooden American flag at Pat Catan's, and I wanted it. And then I picked it up. I looked at the back of the flag, and I saw that it was made in China, and there was no way I was buying a Chinese American flag. But I went home, and I drove my family nuts for weeks. I just kept saying, I can do that. I can do that. I can do it better. I can do it better. So then my family was finally like, well, then just go do it, just to shut me up. Well, I started doing wooden flags. The very first products I used was I would buy bundles of lath, and I would paint the stripes on. I would paint the stars on. And it had a look to it. Some people liked it. I found a guy on YouTube that was making wooden flags out of pallets. A good dude from North Carolina who I eventually would meet when I was down at Charlotte. But anyway, I started doing my flags the way he did, and I started making changes to it. Instead of using paint, I would use stain, which handles the torch better, because obviously, as you can see by my flags, it has a look to it. I don't even use white stain. Okay, there's a lot of flag makers out there now that make flags. Again, when I started, there weren't many people doing it. And I have a look that I want. Some people use CNC machines. Some people paint their stars on. I like to carve mine into the wood. And originally I would distress the white, and I would have white, I would paint the stars on, so they'd be really white. And then I kind of said to myself, okay, well, if my look is to have it look weathered, and the stripes are weathered, why wouldn't the stars be weathered at the same rate? So I look at the white stars on a distressed flag, and I think, for me, that's a dumb look. The reason I make my flags the way I do, it's simple. I put a lot of thought into my flags. I make my flags to be symbolic of the imperfections in our country and in each one of us. Okay, so we're not perfect. Our country isn't perfect. And I make my flags to represent that. I make them to be imperfectly perfect. We all have knots and imperfections, I say with air quote, and I look for wood that has these because it's characteristics in the wood, and I want that in my flags. So you'll see I purposefully choose wood with dings and knots, and I make them to be rough around the edges, again, to be imperfectly perfect. I don't want it to be perfect because we're not. And the reason I do a distressed look, now I know people do it just because, it's a cool look. But the reason I do it is because our flag, the American flag, has seen a lot of good and bad throughout history. Our veterans, our first responders have seen a lot of good and a lot of bad. I want my flags to represent seeing a lot, going through hell, having a lot of battle scars, So my flags, when I make them, this is why I use this look, because I want it to look like it's been through a lot. The American flag, for whatever people want to try to make it out to be, it only represents everything that's good about our country. It's not about oppressing people or upsetting people. It's about all Americans. I've had people tell me I'm desecrating the flag if I do a blue line flag, or even if I do something like this, which was to honor one badass Marine. It's not about that. First of all, this is my artistic interpretation of the flag. It is not the flag, so I'm not desecrating anything, and I understand people have their opinions. I'm also I don't believe that the burning of the American flag should be protected by the Second Amendment. I actually had this conversation with my congressman, and he even talked about it on the floor of Congress. The reason I feel this way is because hate should not be accepted anywhere in our country. Typically, when people are burning the American flag, it's because they don't like our country, okay? If I was to burn a gay pride flag or any other flag, special interest flag, that would be considered a hate crime. But burning the American flag is protected by the First Amendment. In my opinion, and again, it's just my opinion, it should not be protected. Well, my congressman, Max Miller, said those very same things on the floor of Congress, which I'm honored to be in congressional record because of that speech, which you can actually see that if you're interested in what he said about me. You can see that on my YouTube page and also here on TikTok. But so I make my flags for different reasons. Obviously, first and foremost, it's a business. But even more than that, this is my way of still serving in the military. I mean, not serving in the military, serving for our country. I served for 8 years in the Navy. I was in an F-18 squadron, ordnanceman. I loaded bombs on the F-18 Hornet from 87 to 95. And I'm proud to have served. And anytime somebody thanks me for my service, my response is always, it was an honor. But I'm very proud of my country. I'm very proud to support my fellow veterans and first responders. I have helped raise hundreds of thousands of dollars for different charities. I have some go-to charities that I love to help, but I usually try not to say no if a charity approaches me and needs money or needs a fundraising item. But I'm proud to have supported the Lone Survivor Foundation, the Chris Kyle Frog Foundation, the Travis Mills Foundation, Cleveland American Veterans Association, NEOPAT, which is Northeast Ohio Patriot. The Patriot Project in Ohio, which is an amazing charity that helps get chiropractic care to veterans. I also support the SAM Center in Canal Fulton, Ohio. I recently did a fundraiser where I made a smaller flag. This one that I keep showing is a 3-foot flag. I made a smaller flag, a 24 by 13, and I worked it out with William Shatner, Captain Kirk, and he autographed the flag, and he wanted it donated to raise money for veterans. So I put the flag up for auction, even though a lot of people told me I should just keep it because it's a William Shatner autograph and he's 92 years old. But anyway, I put it up for auction. I raised $1,000 and every penny went to the SAM Center, which is a great veteran-owned charity that helps other veterans with getting food. So I was happy to help, and every single penny went to the SAM Center. So along with helping raise hundreds of thousands of dollars, I also worked with a local radio legend the last 2 years of his life. Sadly, he passed away, but we had more to do. But anyway, in the last 2 years of his life, we honored 52 local police departments in the Cleveland area. We were all tired of how cops were being treated. So we provided them free lunch, and I made a 4-foot thin blue line flag, and we presented it to these departments all over Northeast Ohio. I was so honored to be able to do that. Mike Trivisano was the legend, and he sadly passed away, but we would have still been carrying on, the generosity to departments had he still been alive. Sadly, the funding stopped, so it's pretty expensive to provide lunch and wooden flags, but we're still trying to figure out ways to carry on his legacy. So along with helping out the other charities, I still donate flags all the time. In fact, I just had somebody reach out to me this morning for some fundraisers. I've had the honor of meeting so many amazing patriots, politicians, professional athletes, you name it. There's some really cool names that I can say that, and I will, that have people that have gotten my flags. But honestly, to me, the coolest thing is not the celebrities that have gotten my flags and have them hanging in their houses all over the country. Really, the coolest thing for me is that I've lost count of the amount of veterans and first responders all over the country that have wanted my flags, and I've either donated them to or they've purchased. To me, that's cooler that, that regular people like you and me want my flags. But with that said, I mean, the very first celebrity that I made a flag for was Jenny McCarthy. She wanted a flag. She said her husband, Donnie Wahlberg, is very patriotic and cries at the sight of the American flag. So when I first started making flags, Jenny ordered a flag for Donnie, and she actually liked it so much, she ordered 2 more as Christmas presents. My first celebrity was Jenny McCarthy. I've done them for Congressman Gonzalez when he was in Congress. My congressman now, Congressman Max Miller, has one hanging in his office in D.C. Marcus Luttrell, the lone survivor, has one of my flags, as does his twin brother, Congressman Morgan Luttrell. So I'm pretty honored about that. I made Morgan a Texas flag, and he also has that hanging in his office in D.C., which is an honor. I've made them for several Cleveland Browns, Hall of Famer Joe Thomas, Wyatt Teller, Baker Mayfield, current Tampa Bay Buccaneer, one of my favorite quarterbacks ever. He has one. Nick Bosa, which is really, it's cool. So my son a couple of years ago said, "Hey, Dad, you should send a flag to Nick Bosa. He's very patriotic." And, patriotism for me is not a dirty word. So it's okay to be patriotic and love your country. I mean, we all are in the time of the Olympics, but, it's okay to be patriotic year round. But anyway, my son asked me to send one to Nick Bosa, which I did, in a nice little letter in there saying, "Hey, Nick, my son asked me to make this for you and send it. I wasn't looking for money. I wasn't looking for anything. I just wanted to send it to him to say, thank you as a token of my appreciation for what he does for veterans." So I never heard from Nick. No, my son never heard from him. I put my son's contact information. Never heard from him. But I was happy to get one to a patriot. So fast forward a year and a half later, we're watching an interview online after a San Francisco 49ers game. And I see Nick standing in front of his locker, and in the locker is the wooden flag that I sent him. So I started going back and looking at other interviews. To this day, he keeps my 24 by 13 inch wavy flag in his locker. I'm assuming for good luck or to remind him of his patriotism. But yeah, so Nick Bosa has one. New England Patriot Joe Cardona has one. He's also a Navy officer. My buddy Danny Vitale was a fullback for the Browns and Green Bay Packers. Amazing guy and very patriotic. I'm hoping to get him on my podcast soon. But Danny Vitale, Andy Janovich, another former Cleveland Brown fullback. For some reason, fullbacks seem to be the most patriotic in the entire NFL. I don't know. But Geraldo Rivera has one. Former President Donald Trump has one. Gosh, so many people. I did stuff with Taya Kyle, Chris Kyle's widow, and I was invited to the fundraiser gala in Chicago a few years ago. That was pretty fun. Amazing woman. In 2019, 4 Cleveland Indians became U.S. citizens, and I was able to present all 4 of them a wooden American flag, a lot like this, because at the time I wasn't doing wavies, but 4 Cleveland Indians got wooden flags on the field before the game. That was a heck of an honor. So it's things like that make me even more proud of what I do. I love selling my flags. I say this all the time. I love selling my flags, but I also really love getting the letter, the email, the photo, the letter in the mail, the thank you card saying my flag brought, the recipient to tears, or brought their veteran father or grandfather into tears. Those are the things that I really love. The money is nice. The letter is great. Now, I'm not an accountant, but my accountant would say that's not necessarily true, but it's not, for me it is. I don't do this for the money. I do it and I say again with air quotes, I do it to promote patriotism. Getting out there and talking to people about the flag and the history of the flag and, our veterans and the sacrifices they make. To me, that's more important than anything else. In fact, there's a charity, I can't believe I forgot to mention it. For the last, going on 3 years, a family in Ohio has had a soft spot in my heart. It's the Soviak family. Maxton Soviak was killed August 26, 2021 at Abbey Gate. He was one of the 13 that was killed when we were pulling out of Afghanistan. So, funny story, not funny, haha, but his sister Marilyn reached out to me. I was with my family, actually at the Football Hall of Fame. That's irrelevant, but so I get a message. Marilyn Soviak followed my social media, and her brother had just recently been killed, and she reached out to me and she said, "Hey, can I buy one of your wooden flags to have at my brother's funeral?" Well, my response to her was very quickly, but I responded back, absolutely not. But I will give you one of my flags so you can have it. And we worked it out. She said her and her father would come by. I told her I had one available, just like this one here. And she said her and her father would come by in the next day or so to pick it up. And I told her I'd be happy to drive to them because they're in Berlin Heights, Ohio. It's about an hour away. It's not that bad. But she said, no, my dad really needs to get out of the house because, her brother had been killed like maybe a week before that. So the next day, Kip Soviak, Maxton's father, and Marilyn came by my house to pick up the flag. What do you say? His son was only a couple of years older than my daughter at the time. So, of course, I didn't even try to give him any words other than I hugged him. I thanked him for his sacrifice, and told him I would do anything I could whenever they need it. And to this day, I've donated four flags to the Maxton Soviak Foundation, which, if you don't know about it, I would suggest anybody look it up. Last name is spelled Soviak. But it's a great organization. I recently donated a flag for the Maxton Soviak golf outing, and I also bought a team. So we played in the charity golf outing. So my flag helped raise a bunch of money, and I donated another flag at the same time they have a dog walk coming up in a couple of months. So I donated one to that. But I met his mom for the first time about a year ago, and she's the sweetest woman. My son and I were at the Neopat Gala, and I introduced her to my son, and she gave my son the biggest hug, probably 4 or 5 hugs, but I could just see, the heartbreak in her face. And I promised her, I said, Rachel, I'll do anything you guys need. Just let me know. And she told me, she said, all I want you to do is to keep his memory alive. And I promised that, and I intend to keep that promise. I never met Maxton, but I'm honored to have worn the same uniform as him. But anyway, after his dad picked up the flag, he invited me to the funeral, and at the time, he said the Navy still hadn't released his son's body, so he didn't know when the funeral was going to be. But then I heard on the radio later that day that the Navy had contacted the family, and his son's body was being released, and they could get the body at the airport. It was being transported to Cleveland. He was being transported to Cleveland. And I found out that the flag, I went to the funeral, which was, it was as sad as you would imagine. But somebody told me that the flag like this was at the wake, and it was right next to the casket, right next to Maxton's casket for the entire wake, not the funeral, which the flag is now hanging in his father's house. He kept it. But I did go to the funeral, and it was absolutely tragic, and there wasn't a dry eye in the place. And that's why I do this. I mean, honestly, because, I want to remind our veterans and first responders and active duty members that there are people that care. I served proudly, during Desert Storm. I have a soft spot for my fellow, veterans. One of the other things I did too was, obviously January 6th was a dark and ugly day in our country. I had a thin blue line flag available, so I wanted to send it to the Capitol Police in D.C. Because honestly, I was ashamed of what happened in D.C. But I wanted to send it to the Capitol Police to let them know that people appreciate the job they do. I've toured the Capitol twice, and I know it's not easy to get in there and get the tour. You have to go through a lot of hoops to get into the Capitol building. So I wanted them to know that people appreciate the job they did. And they thanked me for it. But a couple of months later, I got a thank you card in the mail. Before the thank you card, I put a letter in with my flag, and I said, I want you to know that whatever happened on January 6th, anybody that assaulted the police officers or vandalized the Capitol building, they don't represent me or my values, and I would never approve of any of that. Not that my opinion really matters to anybody, but they don't represent me or my values. A couple of months later, I get a thank you card. And the thank you card was from Gladys Sicknick. So I had sent the flag on January 6th. I wanted to get it in the mail right away. Officer Sicknick died the next day in the hospital. The flag was already on the way there. And the Capitol Police decided to give that wooden flag to Gladys Sicknick, Officer Sicknick's mother. And I got the nicest card, thank you card back. I had no idea they were going to give it to her. But the card, she talked about her son and his love for being a Capitol Police officer and his love for country and how she was hanging that flag with pride and she was going to think of her son every day. That card to me meant so much. It was unbelievable. First of all, the surprise, but I was so happy that she got it. But I get asked a lot too, what's my favorite flag that I've ever made? And it's hard because I've made thousands. It's hard to have a favorite, but really the coolest thing, so I had been on TV locally in Cleveland. One of my neighbors saw me, and a couple of days later, she pulls into my driveway with a pickup truck full of rotten old wood. And she comes walking up to me and she said, "Hi, you don't know me. I saw you on TV. I realized we're neighbors and I wanted to come say hi." So I showed her what I do and she loved it. Now, again, this was back before I was making these wavy flags. But so she says that her husband, before he went off to Vietnam, he put up a wooden picket fence in their yard. And she was very pregnant at the time, and he was killed in battle in Vietnam. And that fence that he put up was now falling down and needed to be removed. And she, instead of throwing the wood away, she put it in her truck and brought it to my house and asked me if I could do something with it. And so she had a daughter. The daughter obviously grew up not knowing her father. But the daughter loved the American flag and was a big supporter of veterans and first responders. But more importantly, she was a big supporter of the military and loved her dad and, that he was a patriot. So the woman asked me if I could do anything with the flag, with the wood. So I was able to salvage enough of the wood and plane it down and try to work some magic on it. But I was able to make her a 4-foot, it was actually 48 by 26 inches like this, wooden flag. I hand carved all of the stars into the flag. And when her daughter got it, of course she loved it. But then her mom told her that her father, this was the wood that her father built the fence out of in their yard. So instead of it going into the trash, it became a beautiful piece of art. And knowing that her dad also had his hands on that, that's what made it even more special. But I got a message from her, and all it said was she cried. And to this day, the daughter still follows me. And so that's definitely my favorite flag. My flags have given me a luxury of meeting so many amazing people, going to so many amazing fundraising events. I was invited by Moms for America this past December. Moms for America had the biggest fundraiser of the year, and down in Florida in Palm Beach this past December. I was asked if I could donate one of my wooden flags as a fundraising item, which I said I absolutely will, which it ended up raising $2,000, and every penny went to Moms for America. But I was also invited to come down there for the awards banquet, and I said, yeah, I'd love to come. Who wouldn't want to get out of Cleveland in December, especially go to Palm Beach? So the fundraiser was at Mar-a-Lago, so I got to go to Mar-a-Lago. And then they told me after I committed to coming down, they said, oh, by the way, President Trump will be here and he's getting an award for the Founders Award. So I did go to Mar-a-Lago. I had an amazing lunch. I had an amazing time. Got to meet some amazing people, including Dr. Alveda King, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s niece, and Sarah Carter. but I also got to meet the former president. With that said, if I was invited to, the White House and President Biden wanted one of my flags, I would gladly go to that also. So I do not discriminate, but I was invited down there, and it was an amazing, once-in-a-lifetime experience for me. But again, it's why I do my flags is just to honor the sacrifices made by so many amazing patriots. The flag represents so much to me, and it means so much. I'm going to do this as long as I can. These waves and these wavy flags, I carve all of them in by hand. So as long as my hands let me do it, I'll keep doing it. So yeah, if anybody is interested in purchasing one of my flags, I would be happy to build one for you. I say I have a big menu, so I don't just do wavy flags, and I say with air quotes, these are my regular flags. I don't just do these. I'm actually working on this right here. KeyBank, a bigwig from KeyBank has ordered a bunch of 3-foot wooden keys with the American flag in it. So along with the flags, I do other things. I do skulls that resemble the Punisher. I do, guitars. One of my good friends, Billy Morris, was in the band Warrant, and I gave him my first wooden guitar flag. So I do a lot of different things. State silhouettes, which have been a big hit, especially with service members that want a little reminder of home when they're away. But so anyway, I know I rambled on for a while, but this is why I do what I do. And I love being an American. I'm proud to have served our country. I'd love an opportunity to make something for your favorite veteran or first responder. There's a lot of guys out there now from when I started 9 years ago. There's a lot of people that make these things. And they look really cool, and a lot of them are similar to mine. But again, one of the things that I love is that I hand carve all of my stars into my wood, and I want it to have the same level of distress as my stripes. So when you look at a flag and you see the stars painted on versus distressed stripes, if that's the look you like, that's great. There's plenty of business to go around for me and for those guys. But when you look at that, take a look at that. So there's a reason I do that. But I can guarantee when I started off, I was painting those stars on too, and the look has evolved. In my front yard, I actually have one of my original flags that I made out of lath, and everything's painted on. So it's changed a lot. But anyway, I'm going to try to figure out how to end this video. But if anybody has any comments, go easy on me. My voice sounds funny on recording, and I'm not the greatest at this TikTok thing. I'm a talker. I'm sure if you watch this entire video, you'll see I'm a talker. But if there's anything that you need, if you need any advice, if there's any other makers that need any advice, I get my tools from Burdick out of Massachusetts. They sponsored me with my woodworking tools. So, but if anybody needs anything, go easy on the comments. I'm just a regular guy, just trying to do good things. But anybody that has watched this video, thank you. I'm humbled if you watched any of it, and I appreciate it. But if there's anything I can do, be sure to let me know, and have a great day.